Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowry.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Just do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Iron Radio listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry. I'm a teacher. I'm an exercise scientist, sports nutritionist, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
And this is Phil Stevens. I'm strength field, so I run strength field, powerlifter, and in about 9 weeks here, soon to be Highland Games athlete again. So,
excellent.
Stepping onto the field.
Nice. This is Dr. Mike T. Nelson. I'm a faculty member at the Carrick Institute, creator of the Flex Diet Cert, and in Alexandria, Minnesota right now, and giving one talk today and then 3 practical sessions this afternoon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bryan Hartsel, and I'm the new powerlifter.
Okay.
Slightly professional, I guess.
Slightly professional. Yeah, so we got Bryan on. I think Lonnie has a little bit of news, and then we're going to dig into Bryan's past.
Sounds good. Yeah, actually, I set aside the science news just to focus. We have a listener question here, and any of you guys can offer your thoughts, of course. It's a little lengthy, but I wanted to get to it. There's multiple questions in it. It's from Michael. I'll just read this here. Hey, guys, a bit of background. 30-year-old male, been lifting since March 2014. I discovered your podcast maybe 6 months to a year later. I really love all your guests and the info they provide, the insight. There's actual source material, documents, and the science behind everything. I started weighing 360 pounds, very overweight all my life. I lost some weight during middle school when I played football, but I've always struggled with my weights. Then I discovered heavy lifting, starting strength, during a repetition, of course, and the gains started coming. I competed in a couple of amateur garage powerlifting meets, and one official one, he says. Right now, my main concern is just to cut some more weight and really lose this body fat that I have left. I'm currently 245. So good on you, Michael. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then he attached a picture. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I struggled to lose that last 40 to 50 pounds. I started really making sure that I stay in a deficit, and it seems to help. But I'm a little unsure what I should focus on as far as my macros. So that's one of his questions, I think, if we assume that, he is, in fact, lifting. He also goes on to ask, what are the benefits of green tea versus coffee in the morning? And what's your verdict on sugar-free drinks like Red Bulls, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, that sort of thing? And then he says, thanks again. I'd love to donate, but my wife and I are on one income and things are tight. Do you have a main outlet that I can leave a review? Because I use Android, not iTunes, and I listen to CastBox, he says. Well, let me address that last one first, Michael. Iron Radio is free, man. Don't worry about it. We have people who do step up when they can, and it's just that public radio kind of format. We're listener supported. So when people are, on a tight budget like that, we're still here, right? So don't worry about that part for sure. As far as your other questions, Mike, let me ask you just quickly, what do you think about macros? He says he's still, lifting heavy. What might you suggest for someone? Like, what do you have a general, I hate to say template, right? But do you have a general approach to someone? Like he's a big dude, right? And he's trying to bring it down a little bit, but he is lifting heavy. What do you think about macros?
Yeah, I usually will set protein anywhere from 0.7 grams per pound of body weight to 1 gram per pound of body weight, especially if someone's kind of cutting. I mean, there are cases I'll go above that or below it, but it's rare that I ever go below 0.7. Right, and you've seen the literature, I'm sure Phil probably has too, that there's pretty good data to support that as probably the bottom end. The fat is variable, also depend upon their preference and what they like and things of that nature. But anywhere from 60 to 80 grams, which is definitely on the lower side. I mean, he's a pretty big dude. He may be eating a fair amount of food, so maybe 80 to 100. but I tend to go a little bit on the lower side. And then carbohydrates, man, they'll vary anywhere from 120 to 400 grams a day.
Yeah.
Most people, if they're cutting, their carbohydrate amount's going to slowly go down. And you're trying to find the happy medium, the sweet spot between where your performance is still good, but your body composition is still improving. And there's obviously a ton of variations off of that, but I would say in terms of a usable answer, that's probably where I would start.
Yeah, I mostly agree with that. I usually suggest roughly a gram per pound of protein. It fills you up. A man's got to eat something.
Definitely.
Yeah. And fat, I agree 100%. And then on carbs, and we've talked about this with you, Phil, carbs are really what go up and down, when you're trying to gain and lose. If fat and protein are pretty stable, if you want to lose, you got to limit those carbs in relation to workouts and things like that, and not just go hog wild on, purely based on your hunger levels or appetite. So.
Yeah, and one thing I would add real quick that I've noticed, and maybe just the clients I've had more of late, it appears that people who kind of stall out, the thing I'm looking at now is also their aerobic capacity, even in people who are lifters. And if their aerobic capacity is really, really low, we're probably going to do some specific aerobic work or some GPP or something like that. And it's anecdotal, but I've noticed over the last couple of years that really seems to help. And I don't think it's just a calories burn type thing.
Right.
I think it's you're feeling your aerobic metabolism, which is what's working most of the time. And then obviously I still want them to lift heavy and do things like that, of course. But I've just put more of an emphasis on that. And so far, everyone seems to be getting better results from that, too.
Yeah, I tell students all the time, I said, aerobic base, people who are very fit aerobically, they're better fat-burning machines, right? I agree.
Totally.
It's the adaptations. You got more mitochondrial furnaces and all of those muscles, and put them to use. Burn some fat, baby. So,
I'd just add, he's lost 115 pounds.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's going to slow. The rate you're going to lose at is going to be much slower now than it was 115 pounds ago. That's just like me. I'm down 34 pounds over the last 3 weeks.
Ooh,
it's going to creep. It's going to creep now.
Right.
Because I lost all the bloat and stuff like that from eating like a complete asshole. So, basically he probably did the same thing. He had a lifetime of inactivity and eating too much, and he lost the easy stuff. And now I didn't see the picture, so I don't know where he's at now. How lean are we talking, this and that, at 245? Because in my gym, 245 is an average lifter that's in pretty damn good shape and pretty lean. So and where your goal's headed, if you're like, I want to be big and strong, this and that, maybe you don't need to lose much. You just need to concentrate on hard work and eating right, and let that pan out in the end. I don't know how strong this guy is. He says he does a couple meets, but that doesn't mean, if he's wanting to put up 700-800 pounds in the squat and deadlift, then you probably don't want to lose much more. So
good point. Yeah,
it just depends on where he's at, where he's looking to go. So
Just so we can get to Bryan here just quickly. Benefits of green tea versus coffee. I'd have a little bit of each, bro. Those are a lot of antioxidants. You'll get stuff like EGCG in the green tea. Some of these things are supposed to boost your metabolism, different, phytochemicals, antioxidants, stuff like that. Coffee's loaded with them, too. I've always liked coffee ramping up to a workout. And I know, Michael, you're talking about having it more so in the morning. My only caveat for the morning is if you get too wired in the morning, then you'll come down, like after lunch, and it looks like you train in the afternoon based on your email. So then you could actually be trying to train when you're sort of crashed off the caffeine. So you got to kind of save it a little bit for go time, if you're going to do that. And then as far as what's the verdict on sugar-free stuff, I know there's a lot of stuff out there about how artificial sweeteners can mess with your gut bacteria, and maybe they're not so good overall. My default And we've had people on the show before that had different opinions on this, right? So you really have to decide for yourself, I think. But my default has been that sugar-free stuff, if you are trying to control your carb intake and you're trying to get high fructose corn syrup out of your life, they're more good than they are bad, in my opinion. If you can just drink unflavored coffee and green tea and that kind of stuff, good on you. God, go that route, But if the artificial sweetener really does, it's the key to keeping you from chugging down I would never be chugging down unless I was depleted or trying to gain, or like Phil says, just, recklessly. I don't think I'd be chugging down high fructose corn syrup as the calorie source. There's just not much justification for it. So,
oddly enough, even when I'm eating up, that's one thing I stay away from still. I just don't do it. I just don't do the sodas. I just
yeah.
But
okay.
I seem to really like adding that Mio water flavors into all my waters, and it helps me make sure I get enough fluids in.
Yeah, it does matter. Yeah. If it tastes good,
And last thing, I would agree with Lonnie, too. I think I got this from you originally, Lonnie, is that trying to move your taste buds over time to things that are a little bit more bitter, because that will, over time and habit, kind of drive you to things that have less calorie. Like you're saying, Lonnie, kind of plain green tea and black coffee. And can you get the same level of enjoyment from that? I'm not saying deprive yourself just to do it, but, over time, months, weeks, years, can you enjoy things that are a little bit more bitter? I've just noticed that people who tend to be leaner tend to like things that are more bitter overall.
Yeah, and just the overall concept, you can retrain your palate, not
Definitely.
to want the sickly sweet stuff. You really, I can tell you about 12 weeks into a 24-week diet, when I've done that kind of thing, I actually become quite comfortable with just chicken and vegetables and, don't really want tons of cheese curls and Coke, and you do train yourself away from it too. One last thing, and then I'll turn things over to Phil. As far as his photos, Phil, he's muscular. He's doing like a back double biceps and stuff, and he looks like he's got a fair amount of muscle mass, and so I'm with you. If his goal, Michael, if your goal really is strength, I wouldn't sweat it too much. You could clearly see his deltoids and, the taper down to his lower back and stuff like that. He's got some mass on his upper back. If you really want to be strong, Fortress always used to almost rip on people who were trying to be wasp-waisted and be strong as hell. I just don't think those things go together very well. So that's pretty much it.
All right. We're going to get to Bryan. Bryan Hartsel is on the show. So if anybody's not familiar, Bryan became what was it, the fifth man we figured out? Fifth or sixth to deadlift and squat over 900 in the same meet.
Wow.
This was about 3 weeks ago. And I'm thinking the first one to do it without a belt on the deadlift. So, because I'm not sure anybody's ever done that without a belt. But, yeah, so that's who we got on the show. But let's we basically always start with, what got you into, what are your origins as far as strength training or just exercise?
Well, I've been going to the Y here in town since I was probably 21.
Okay.
And I was always interested in bodybuilding. That's what got me into it. But I was always doing my squats and my bench and my deadlift, probably deadlifting more than every 7 days when I was younger. And I was, I've always been really good at all the power lifts. So I think it was about 2 years ago, my buddy Pat Sells talked me into doing my very first meet, and that was at wherever JP Price's gym was, and I put up some pretty good numbers there. So that was kind of the start of it.
What's pretty good?
Oh God, Bryan came in there that day because I was there too, in his wore-out running shoes, no belt, and what'd you do?
No knee sleeves too. Don't forget.
No knee sleeves. Yeah, no knee sleeves. Yeah. So he just himself pretty much. And what'd you do?
765 squat, and I think I ended up benching 50 whatever it was, the first number in the fives, but I got a miss rack command. So I missed that, but I ended up with like a 570 or a 470 bench press, and then I deadlifted 804 or 803, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow.
So 9, 10, 11.
It was like 20-30, I think,
Yeah.
for a total.
So yeah, a first total of 20-30. So yeah, and that's when we were all standing around there. I was at the meet. I had a bunch of lifters there, and I was coaching Pat at the time, his friend, and it's like, holy crap, where are you hiding this guy? And everyone in the meet was like, where did this guy come from? So yeah, and you see pictures of you now. You always weren't. Brian's a big guy. What are you, 6'4"?
6'3".
6'3", 375 at the last meet.
Yeah.
So, and you see pictures, and it wasn't that long ago, you were much smaller, correct?
Yeah. I mean, before I met my wife, I was, that was about 5.5 years ago. I was 275 or 280, but now I'm about 100 pounds heavier than that.
Wow.
But it's a lot of powerlifting strength weight, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it's different. For sure. I mean, to put this in perspective, to put your size in perspective, what are your thighs now?
I don't know, 32-inch.
Oh.
So,
The size of my waist.
yeah, so you got 2 mics on each of your body.
Right.
But,
Right.
Yeah.
so in high school and whatnot, the first thing I saw when I saw you was like, why is this guy not in football or something? Did you ever play sports in high school or anything?
Actually ran cross country one year.
You ran cross country. Oh, good.
So I always kind of had a hate relationship with football. It's just not my thing. I didn't like, coach would say, Brian, get mad at and go and hit somebody. And I was like, I can't be mad. I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
So I'm just not my type of sport. I always played golf, and I ran cross country my junior year, and I was kind of weird looking because I was the biggest guy out there, but
leaving potholes as you run. No, and that's one interesting thing I want to talk about is, you see a lot of powerlifters, and you see a lot of ammonia and smacks and screaming and yelling, and, you lift your best when you're calm and joking around. I mean, do you think... One thing I've always wondered, coaching you, is what... Do you think you could get angry and harness that?
Maybe if I had the right music going.
Yeah.
But angry, I don't know. One time I tried it, I was listening to some Lamb of God, and
there you go.
The music really dropped, and I got too amped up, and I forgot how to deadlift, but I still doing like... I don't remember what I was doing, 835 deadlifts for 3, and I just, my form just broke down. I just had too much adrenaline going.
Yeah.
It looked really weird.
Yeah. No, I mean, by far, you're the calmest lifter I've seen, especially with heavyweights. I mean, going after the 900 and whatnot, you'll just come up and kind of move the chains and wave at the crowd and then nonchalantly walk it out and squat. And, things like, people don't understand, like you said, the first meet, you didn't have sleeves. It was a little bit of a battle to get you in sleeves, and then I tried wraps on Brian once, and he yelled at me and made me take them off. What is it? You say it's painful. It's this and that. Is there more to that than sleeves? Do you have an interest in doing wraps ever? Do you?
I just feel kind of like a raw elitist of sorts, where I just am really more interested in what the human body can do by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would consider, knee sleeves about as naked as you can be.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to start using knee wraps, in my opinion, what's going to keep you from doing like a equipped past that? And where do you draw the line on what the body can do and what the equipment can help you do?
Yeah.
So I just kind of always like that naked lifting. So
yeah. We did finally get you into some better shoes, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember we went to Record Breakers and Mark Bell was filming it, and then he did a show after. He's like, "Here comes this guy in some shoes that he just mowed the lawn in." Literally, he had like grass stains all over him.
I kind of wore those down there on purpose, just because it kind of messes with everybody.
Yeah, and
people see that guy walking out with his mowing shoes on, and I remember at Record Breakers my 815 opener, and smoked it, and I had who's that guy that squatted right before me? Do you remember? Matt. Matt.
Matt Winning. Matt Winning. Yeah.
He'd struggled up an 8:05 or something, and here I did 8:15 like it was nothing. I think he left.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And yeah, the shoes were just crying. They were like the really soft-soled, squishy, and you see them with they have a 370-pound man and 815 pounds on them. The soles just it looks like a gummy bear that's just got stepped on.
And I had never witnessed it before, but when I walked that first squat out, that 8:15, I actually felt my soles start to squish on me, and I thought it was the mats that they had at that meet, but it ended up just being my shoes. It kind of almost fell walking that first squat.
So, where do you think, honestly, in your opinion, you've done 9, you've done over 5. I mean, bench is definitely the spot we need to work on, which is a shoulder issue. But, I mean, where do you think you can go? I mean, you're fairly young still. You're new to this, 4 or 5 meets. I mean, in your mind, what's the limit?
Well, I kind of got my eyes set on the 2,400-pound total next.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably going to do the tribute meet again down in San Antonio this year. So, I was really hoping I could put up a 950 squat and a 530 bench and a 930 deadlift.
Nice.
So that's my goal.
And
just to get that deadlift up and maybe be, 930 deadlift would be 8th or 9th ever.
Yeah.
Maybe higher than that. There's a lot of guys 910s and the 920s, but 930s kind of.
Yeah, and that's one thing people don't understand. All these, now there's been several thousands pulled, but never in a full meet. So you start getting in a 930 in a full meet after squatting 9+.
Right.
That's huge, man. That's really big. So, I mean, I don't think people, the general population doesn't understand that, how much a big squat can take out of you.
But if you get a squat and you end up folding over too much, well, then there goes all your tightness in your back that you're trying to save for the deadlifts.
Yeah. So, yeah. You guys got any questions before we go to the topic?
I have one for you, Bryan. Obviously, you have a huge amount of raw talent. What do you think it is? What do you think that makes... I mean, you're a big dude. That's obvious. But there's a lot of guys that are big dudes that don't, have 900-pound performances times 2 in a meet and stuff like that. What do you think that you were born with, or obviously you have a different style as far as your outlook and that kind of thing. What is it that you think makes you, different or able to do this?
I was always pretty strong. Even in high school, I pulled a 635 deadlift in the trap bar, because that's what everybody used in high school, was the trap bar for deadlifts. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Ever since I'd started bodybuilding and doing my deadlifts every day or every week, my form was always kind of different. I just did whatever worked for me, and that was way back before Instagram, or I didn't even follow any power lifters, so I had no idea what anybody's form looked like. I just kind of did what worked for me.
Yeah.
And my deadlift form, and my setup, it's kind of weird, but it's just what works for me. So I don't know. I don't know why one 380-pound guy can do one weights and another guy can't. I don't really understand it all, but
I have to think a lot of it because my past in this and all the people I've worked with, generally, my lifters that are better were athletes before, or into bodybuilding or this and that, and they've just, prior to powerlifting, they built an amazing base, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
There was lots of lifting and lots of training before that, and they come into it with this huge athletic base or just muscle built base, not from lifting maximally, but just lifting. And now we can take that and turn it into something pretty amazing. So I have to think, that your years of bodybuilding and just the base you've built has to be a huge help. I mean,
yeah.
I like to talk about the mind-muscle connection because I think that's kind of important, especially for powerlifting. You know, I want to go and work my lower back out doing a back extension machine or something, and a lot of people don't know how to focus the specific muscles out properly so they can work just what they want to work. Or if I'm doing rows, barbell rows, or dumbbell rows, some people kind of turn it into a deadlift. They'll deadlift it up and then kind of shrug it. And, you know, I kind of like to do more focused moves so I can work on the muscles that I'm actually trying to work specifically. And I think that kind of translates over into powerlifting because you know you can think if you get stuck on a squat, you know, and you're a little forward or a little backward on your stance, well then you could get your hamstrings or your quads more in there to try to balance you out. I think that's kind of important, just knowing how to fire all the muscles separately.
Well, and it totally makes sense on your assistance moves. I mean, as well. I mean, I think generally people, and this is kind of merging into the topic of the day, but people attack their squat. Let's say it's squat day. They attack it, and they try and take that same mentality into assistance work. And that's not the way it needs to be. You know, I mean, you don't need to be going, I'm going to a max 5 bent over row. No, let's not. You know?
Right.
Well, let's just get some work in, man. You know, you've only got so much of that in you. So,
you know, I've often thought about the differences. You know, one of the key differences to me, and it sounds like this is a complementary way to look at it with, you know, what Bryan is doing, but is, you know, with bodybuilding stuff, it's muscle focused, and with powerlifting, it's movement focused. You know, but yeah. It's a good point. Like, there's all those cool studies about when you get coached to engage more triceps in the bench press, you can actually get more like EMG activity, electrical activity in your triceps because you're being coached to do it. You know, and it sounds like Bryan has that mind in the muscle thing that maybe some powerlifters haven't experienced to the same extent. You know.
Yeah, or benching through your lats. I can't explain to you how hard it is to get somebody to use their lats on a bench when they have no idea how to use their lats. You know?
Yeah, lats are a tough one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, or they have no lats to flex. It's like, well, I can't do it because I don't have any. You know?
Absolutely.
So,
I think it's also important that just doing all the accessory moves and making sure you get all the blood pumped into your muscles for recovery.
Yes.
You know, I've been hitting a lot of 20 rep sets this month, and I think that's important. Just, you know, it keeps your connective tissue healthy, and you're not always pushing it down to sets of 5.
Yeah.
You know, just keeping those muscles full of blood, and that, you know, that's what pumps the nutrients around. So.
Well, and not to mention, like you said, connective tissue. There's only so many. I mean, you can attest to this. Like, after a meet, you're just ready to not lift heavy. You know, I mean, generally you're just achy all over the place because you've had months of just lifting heavy.
Not too bad this meet, which was that's what we're going to talk about, but that was kind of surprising.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and roll into the break here, and then we'll come back with the topic of the day and let Bryan just lay it out there.
Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowry. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowry. You can just Google that, and I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book, but that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks. Iron Radio is, of course, primarily a podcast. But over the years, there have been technical glitches calling for backup streaming and listeners who wanted the convenience of other sources of audio content. Toward this end, Iron Radio is now simulcast and backed up on YouTube. If needed, please search Lawnman07 or Iron Radio from within YouTube. There's not much video, but if you like to listen through YouTube on a Roku or other living room device, there you go.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, everybody, we are back. And our topic of the day today is going to be, I posted something about this the other day, but basically I think the biggest mistake that most strong people do is they train too heavy too often. And, you know, one thing that we do and one thing that Bryan does is you don't have to let it all out there in training to do it at a meet. I mean, Eddie Cohn talks about it. You've only have so many heavy lifts in your lifetime. Do you want to do them on Instagram or on the platform?
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing we're going to talk about. I'm a big proponent is let's push your 80% up. If I know that's still moving, we don't need to max, you know, and all of our maxes in the gym are generally done in perfect form. That's what we're looking for. And now on the platform, things might go. Let's flesh this out a little bit, Bryan. You want to talk about it some?
Sure. Well, I mean, let's just talk about this last meet prep. I hadn't even squatted in the 700s until I think it was about 2 months out.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of 675, 85s, 95s. And, you know, I don't remember what it was, 4 sets of 5.
Yeah.
Something like that. And you know, I think that 2 months out, we were doing box squats for singles.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it was like a max 5, max 3, max 1.
Yep.
And that was, you know, 2 months out, and that last box squat I did, that was my first time I'd even been in the 800s, and I did an 865 box squat with a pause at the bottom, and, you know, and that deadlifts too. I don't done one deadlift in the 800s, all of that meet prep, and I still pulled that 903. So it's kind of magic if you ask me.
Yeah, and
just do 80% deadlifts and get your grip strong enough to do a 904.
Yeah.
But, you know, I like doing those 765 deadlifts and just practicing form and making sure that my knees don't go soft, because that's kind of always been a problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when people don't, it's just like I touched about on there. It's like, even when we're doing the, like, people call it conjugate style or whatnot, where we're doing a five this week, 3 next week, 1 next week, it's not to a true max. It's still something we crush. You know, like when you hit that 865, it was solid. You know, I mean, so and you don't need to. One thing I preach is we just don't miss in the gym. You don't fail. There's no need to go to that. We know, like with Bryan, he crushed 865. Well, we know there's more. He crushed it. Why do we need to go up? You know, and you're just risking injury, you know, and things like that. So now, let's say next meet prep, he can hit an 885 in the same move, and just as easy. Well, we know you're stronger. You know?
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, why do we need to go to 930 when we know that his, you know, he crushed a 20-pound heavier weight in the same move? So, it saves your joints some. And, I mean, the only thing that potentially could miss you, and so I'll do walkouts with heavy weight. Like, I'll walk out a weight that I want to hit in the meet, and that's it. I won't go for it. And part of it has, I think a lot of it has to do with just mentality. If you're in the gym and you know nothing but crushing weights, you haven't missed in a year and a half, you generally come in pretty confident because that's all you do. Whereas I see people who train to failure a lot, and they know failure. They're friends with failure. So it's easy for doubt to slip in their head if they failed a lot, if that makes sense. And what do you guys think about that?
Plus, I think from a motor learning standpoint, it's like, what are you training your body to do? You know, if you're literally failing and missing weight a lot, you're literally training your body and your nervous system to miss weight. You know, it's like almost like a bad habit. It's why I don't play golf anymore, because I would be worse, you know, or if you're hitting every single one, right? So Hebb's law, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together. That's literally all of your brain, your nervous system, your body knows, because that's all it's experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I think that's a big part of it. But I mean, what else? We got assistance work, like I talked about. I think most of it we did on a a bodybuilding type template, and then just addressing your weaknesses. Like your biggest was probably your grip in the deadlift, correct, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's my weakness anymore.
No, I don't think it is either. But
I think that works for me, and I've really probably bench. Bench is still my weak spot, but squats always really scare me leading up to the meet, because you haven't squatted in 10 days. You're taking your little deload, and leading up to this last competition, I was like, damn, I hope I can remember how to squat. I was worried.
Yeah.
And you start doing warm-ups and you hit 500, 600, and you're like, okay, I remember.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, it's kind of scary for me getting up there and doing a pretty big opener on the, especially squats.
Yeah.
Just because first lift of the day, but also it's kind of sets the tone for the rest of the squats.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's why squat's the toughest. I mean, it sets the tone for the whole day. If you come out there and shit the bed, oh boy, now I'm in trouble. Now if I miss number 2, now you're really in trouble.
It was like that at Tribute. You remember that? I missed that 875 opener I wanted to do last year, and then came back and cut it.
Yeah. And then came back and crushed it, but it can be a real mind battle there on that. And I think, that may be right now, as far as meets go, for you, it's getting you to relax. Because you can tell when you start thinking about the squat and you're not dancing around and having fun and joking with people. And then, like at this meet, Eddie Cohn and Dan Bell came up and they're like, just go out there and have fun. And now you come out there and crush the 903. So it's don't let yourself get out of your norm. Your training and your meet day should be about the same. If you're normally having fun in a meet, then let's go out there and have fun. That's all it's about. So
yeah, it makes sense. What little I know about sports psych, some of the major approaches are either associate and really hyper focus and get into what you're doing, or some people in some situations they dissociate. And it almost sounds like Bryan does a little bit better by just dissociating, having fun, and then just being very, in the now and just go do it, sort of matter of factly,
Mm-hmm. It was like that with golf. I mean, interestingly enough, when I'd go golfing and I started to take it too serious, then I'd always start playing bad.
Yeah.
When you're just having fun and joking around, well, then you don't think too much about your swing and you just kind of hit the ball. That was some of my best rounds of golf. It was just always when I was having fun. And I think, it could be exactly the same with the powerlifting.
Yeah.
You've got that program pretty much unconsciously programmed. You just don't want to consciously hose it up, right? You want to do whatever you can to execute that unconscious program that you spent all the time and the reps and everything and already trained.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's where people mess up, is they thinking, like we're talking about, you're thinking about your swing or you're thinking about your squat. Like I do very well of getting pretty hyped up. I don't need people smacking me around or anything. It's all internal. But when I go to the platform, I'm not thinking about bend my knees, push knees out. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm just in the zone. Yep. That's unconscious. I don't hear people. And I just do it. You just react. At that point, you just rely on the thousands of reps of training. I think most of your thinking should be done probably under 80%. You start getting to 80%, and it's time to just do it. So
when I get really heavy, I feel like on squats I'm not even there.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys, do you not remember your lifts? Like you remember going up and then you just remember afterwards, but you don't remember the lift in a meet?
Yeah, I don't remember much at all.
Yeah, not what went on. I know I did it.
Exactly.
But, I remember before, coming up to the platform, and then I don't hear anything. The only thing I will ever hear is my wife, and I think that's just because my mind's programmed to hear it. So you'll have 200 people screaming, and I can hear her. Stevens.
Right. You're trained to listen to that one.
Yeah, or my kid. My kids, I'll hear them, but it's just because my mind is so trained to that. I don't see people. I don't, and that's what's weird to me. The people that are doing meets for the first time, they're so worried about the crowd. It's like I don't even see them. They're not there. It's me in this bar, and that's it. So
I remember the one meet I did a long time ago. This was the last doing the deadlift portion, and there's this one lady in front, and I didn't even know her, but she's super nice and super cheering. And I remember right before the deadlift, there was like maybe 100 people there. I don't remember hearing anything. I don't remember the music. I don't remember anything else. But for some odd reason, I just remember her saying, "You can do it." And then I made the lift. And at the end, I didn't even remember if I had to look to see if I even made the lift. I didn't remember anything else.
You guys, this reminds me a lot of something they actually teach in kendo. When you face somebody, the cheesy way to look at this is like, even in the Last Samurai movie, he says, "No mind." And he says, "What do you mean, no mind?" And he says, "Well, you have mind on the crowd, mind on your own hands, mind on your opponent. Just have no mind." And that's kind of almost an Asian philosophy, I think. But that's what you guys are describing, right? Is you go into a zone and, like Phil, or Brian, or all you guys, you stand up with the weight. Here's the weight. Yeah. Squat down with it and stand up.
I mean, and literally at that point, that's really what it is. You see a bunch of people, they'll come up and a lifter will miss a weight, and they're telling them 1,700 cues of how to fix it. That ain't going to help. That's not going to help. And all you're going to do is muddle their mind. So it's just go out there. Let's have fun. Let's do this.
Right. So, I had one thought about maybe one of the differences between you, Phil, and Brian. You guys can speak to this a little maybe, but, Brian, you were talking about how taking that deload, that taper, you haven't done that lift for over a week, and it's a little bit in the back of your mind, like, do I remember how to do this? And I agree, your body will remember, but I guess my question partly is for Phil on this is, do you think, decades of training, does that still happen? Do you, or do you like, no, I'm just such a, veteran that deload period, it doesn't even cross my mind that I've forgotten how to do this?
No, I don't worry about it. The only problem that I've seen recently in years is I'm almost too relaxed coming into a meet because I've done them so many times. It's hard for me to, like, there's no nervousness, and almost like the excitement is not as high as it used to be. Like, I'm going to stand up in front of these people and squat. It's like, okay, I've done this like 97 times. And so it's almost gotten hard to get myself up, whereas before it was automatic. It was like, oh shit, I'm stepping out here in front of all these people. I'm going to squat. So I have to get myself in the zone. Whereas before it just happened. So that's probably the only problem I have is I'm not nervous at all. I mean, I'll go joke around and that maybe it's the opposite of Brian. I start joking around and having fun, and that's not how I train best. I train best very focused and losing myself and getting pretty amped up to where inside there's a really big fire burning, and I need to get that to do my best. So that's probably the only issue I have with years of it. So
I think this prep, I'm going to try getting a little more amped up for my lifts. In practice. I mean, I still want to have fun, but if I want to, maybe not back slaps, but maybe having somebody scream at me a little more, might work a little bit better, just to help me kind of get in the zone. Because it seems like sometimes my problem is I'll get up to the squat and I'm just not ready for it.
Yeah,
but I feel like if you got somebody screaming in your ear, and that's a stimulus you remember from practice, well, then it maybe gets your adrenaline going and your mindset where you need to be.
And not thinking about the heavy squat.
Related to that, what do you guys think of this? And Brian said he's a big hugger. Like between, the squat and the bench, or the bench and the deadlift, he has a a mandatory hugger number that he has to hit to keep him relaxed.
I'd given Ed that hug after my deadlift.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I hope he wanted a hug.
Yeah. he didn't have a choice
because he got one.
I don't think he has a choice then.
I think you posted about that. Somebody was like, you were like, he didn't have a choice. I was coming in.
Yeah.
But
I just, it's kind of helps you relax a little bit. You give people hugs, and it doesn't need to be. You don't need to be a certain person at a meet. You don't need to be too cool to mingle or give people hugs or anything.
Yeah.
I had one other question. You said that your grip strength was a weakness, and now you feel that it's not. For both of you guys, what did you do to train that?
Everything. So
everything.
Well, number one was ditching straps.
Okay.
Because before, when you were doing bodybuilding stuff, you used straps a lot, right, Brian?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was ditching that, throwing in some farmer's walks and things like that.
Yeah.
So just using it, really.
So mostly a lot of supportive grip work then.
Yeah. So, and then just deadlifts themselves, like you said, going for. It sounds strange for most people, but like 765 is a nothing lift. So lots of those. So.
Did you do a lot of like both palms down, so to speak, like pronated work, or did you do mixed grip? Or
I don't do a lot of that with people.
Okay.
I do a lot of their grip they use in the meet. It's like that's what we need to make strong. Generally, I have people warm up double overhand, but once they're at a point, we swap out. Like for me, it depends. It's my grip. Honestly, used to be better on not on deadlift. It's just as good as it ever was, but on other things. Like we did farmers the other day, and I used to be able to do 700-pound farmers, and I think we did 500-pound farmers. I was like, wow, that's really hard. And so my grip, as far as that goes, is way behind where it used to be. But I still have no problem pulling in the sevens. Not an issue at all. So, but I think it's just the difference of the grip. I'm used to grip, and I know how to do it. But
and I can pull 900-pound deadlift, and I still think farmers are always heavy.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
You do your warm ups with like 150 on there, and you're like, this sucks. But it's the fact that the farmers they're usually separate handles, so I can't do my under over grip like I like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So. I just noticed more advanced lifters that some of the quote unquote standards I would use just utterly break down. Like they seem to be so programmed for speciality that they kind of break all the rules, and it still works a lot of times. As long as you're doing something that's semi-intelligent. It seems like the specificity just tends to rule everything, even more in that case.
Like I guarantee you there's people out there that are much smaller and not as strong as me that would kill me in like grippers.
Yeah.
I'm not very good
highly specific too.
Yeah, I'm not very good at grippers. I don't have a great crushing grip. I can hang on to a bar. I can close my hand and hang on really well. My hand doesn't open, but as far as crushing grip goes, I'm not very good at it, and I'm not sure it translates that well to just a static hold. Yeah,
I haven't seen grippers translate to much of anything other than grippers in terms of grip stuff. That's just my bias. But
well, you guys, let me play devil's advocate then, because if specificity says, there's not perfect transfer, that you've got to actually do the task at hand. Isn't this idea of not training heavy going against that a little? Like I remember I was at a conference, years ago, it was in the 90s, and Hakkinen, I was over in Finland, and he was talking about the Olympic lifters who spend the most time in the 90% range do the best as far as Olympic lifting teams, right? Now, I'm thinking this falls apart because of the size and the strength of you guys. Is that fair?
And it falls apart because of the difference. It's a different sport.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can you speak to that?
Olympic lifting is very dynamic. You're throwing weights, and especially as a snatch, it's much more technical. If you're not constantly getting in that 90% zone on such a technical lift, you're going to mess up. I mean, like my weightlifters we're lifting heavy until the day before the meet. Whereas my powerlifters, we back off and take almost a week off.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, because they need Olympic weightlifters and they just need to stay honed in on that specific skill. Like I can get my squat can move. I can get an inch out of groove on a squat and save it. You can't get an inch out of groove on a snatch and save it. You're not going to do it. You don't have, if you got 400 pounds over your head and it's an inch out in front, your delts and stuff aren't going to pull 400 pounds back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's the difference. And I think training, what we're talking about is still training very specific. I mean, it's just, if I move 700 pounds really fast for a double, I'm still generating as much force as I will with 800. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're still being very specific in a squat, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I imagine, I mean, because I don't do Olympic lifts, right, I can only imagine that skill set, like you're saying, is being in that 90% of your 1 rep max kind of range. What you're actually firing and when, and the whole skill thing, the whole movement pattern is really very specific to the heavy load versus the lighter load.
Yeah.
You know, and like you said, in powerlifting, it's not the I don't know what I'm looking for here. Sophistication isn't the right word, but you know, the pulling everything together plus or minus a centimeter like that. It's not as big a deal. So what you guys are doing it's specific to the 3 big lifts, obviously, but you're saying the form or what's required in that in a meet isn't necessarily that different from the lighter loads, I guess.
Well, and look at the loads. I mean, the heaviest load ever lifted in a clean and jerk is 586. The heaviest squat is, you know, approaching double that. You know, I don't think anybody would have, like, Terry Ankle probably could have squatted 900 pounds because he can clean and jerk 586. I don't think any coach would have him squat 900 or 890 every day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
In the 90% range. They'll have him clean and jerk 500, but not do 90% of his squat max, which is a totally different lift. I mean, so yeah, the two sports are not the same. Like I wouldn't have, okay, we got to meet tomorrow. You're squatting 100%, you know, on with one of my weightlifters even, because that's going to beat you up in a different way than a dynamic lift will. So
percent wise, is it before you do your taper, right, for the meet, are you trying to, you know, hit like a 90% for a triple or something like that, or how are you?
What kind of opener-ish? What did we hit? 855 was the heaviest we went?
Yeah, but just singles.
Yeah.
Just singles,
855 or singles.
Okay, yeah.
So, and just killing that.
A lot of people like to try and do their opener for 3 reps. But that's kind of unrealistic. That'd really wear me out trying to do 855 for a triple.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and at the point you're at, and like I don't do it anymore either. A lot of my lifters, I will have them triple them. That's how we figure out their openers. But with Bryan, myself, and some of the more seasoned lifters, we just kind of know where we can open.
Yeah.
And all we do is get good at singles there. Like if I know, like for me, I was doing 705 the 4 weeks before the meet. I just did that 4 weeks in a row and had no issues. I know it's there. And I still hit 705 and jacked my hamstring up. You know, my hamstring out of the hole got jacked up and I still stood up with it. So, I mean, obviously it was an easy opener. So,
right. You know, I can see how some people, they get a lot of confidence, especially maybe somebody who is a little less gifted or they're just getting their head around it, that I effing tripled this, you know, a week ago, so I can definitely open with it. But then, if you've got the confidence because you did it once, then I guess you don't need to triple it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's, like you said, I think that's a lot of my new lifters. It'll be, okay, you just tripled this 2 weeks ago. You got it. You know, it's just setting their mind at ease. You've done this for 3. Let's just do it for 1.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So where we don't have the same nerves coming into a meet, we don't need that backing behind us. It's like we just kind of know what we can do. We're going to go do it. And I don't need that hard triple. And honestly, part of it's to do with load too. There's a difference in between having someone take 405 for a triple, if that's their triple max, than there is somebody taking 855 for a triple.
Totally.
And the amount it'll beat you up and the risk. You know, it's not worth the risk to have Bryan go 855 for 3 2 weeks before a meet. Because what if the potential of going bad is much greater, because the bad is going to be a lot worse So,
and that's even true for big dudes like Bryan, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, if something goes wrong with 900, it's not going to be a little bit wrong. So,
yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah, but
yeah. My other quick comment was that you're doing this all based on individual data too, because even Bryan said he's done 4 or 5 meets, and Phil's done hundreds of meets. So you have data to show that, okay, last time I did this in training, I hit this in a meet.
Yeah.
So you can go back and go, oh, I'm 20 pounds above what I was doing in training before, so I know I'm going in the right direction.
Yes.
Right? Where I think a lot of people try to spend a little bit too much time looking at that for their first meet. I'm like, just record, do what you can, and now your second meet, you've got that whole roadmap you can kind of iterate a little bit on in your 4th meet and 5th meet. So after a while, you kind of know if you're on track or you're off track. For the first couple times, you're a little bit kind of shooting in the dark,
Oh, yeah, you are.
Yeah, the evidence. Because, you don't have the evidence
you don't
it.
have the data to go, well, this is historically what happened. You don't have that.
No. That's like with me. I mean, I can go in, like next meet prep, which won't start until like next fall. But I can tell you what I hit for 5 rep, 3 rep, 1 rep in like box squat, bandit squat, reverse bandit squat, pause squat, regular squat. And I can, I'm 6 pounds up, I'm 10 pounds up, whatever. I'm heading in the right direction. So I know where I need to be to top my previous best.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you know what accessory work translates to. Because you know that if your box squat is X, your full squat is probably somewhere around Y. Right? Where a lot of people initially, they don't have that. So they just assume that box squats will transfer, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it depends on what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
So what their weaknesses are.
Yeah, think about what this is going to do for you, Bryan, like over time. Like you are going to have that evidence base, of hard numbers. Like, well, I've just done this and then this and then this. And then, like Mike says, then you can extrapolate or add on or iterate that in some way to keep going up. Because, I mean, your chassis is so big, that... Yeah, having that kind of evidence. I mean, I wish politicians operated like that, right? Instead of opinion-based decisions, how about evidence-based decisions?
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, Bryan, you can speak on this too, but I think a lot of it too is, basically our goal at all times is let's go better our total. Even if, basically we've added 50 pounds of meat or something like that to Bryan's at a huge total. I think a lot of people come out and they get too caught up in, like, we just asked you what your newest goals are, and you didn't say world record. You said, I want to do this and this and this, which was 25, 30 pounds more than last time. Whereas most people come in and they go from okay, I'm a good powerlifter to I want to beat Lillibridge, and they go crazy and they train like they don't play the long game, they're playing end game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I like playing the long game. Let's just beat you. And by beating you, like with Bryan, by having Bryan beat Bryan, he became the 5th person in history to do something. We weren't concentrated on beating the top person. Yeah. And I think that's where people mess up. They don't play the long game of just getting better than themselves. They start looking externally at the best, and they think I need to beat them, and this is what I got to do. I got to grind myself to the ground to beat the best. And then you see them 3 years later, and they've had 17 injuries, and they ground themselves to nothing. Whereas if you take a little longer approach, you'll be here for years doing it.
Right.
And maybe it takes you 5 years, but wow, maybe you're the best now.
That's fun to hear that powerlifters do that too, because I can tell you so many young bodybuilders, when you ask them what they want to do, they say, I want to be a pro. Oh, please, come on. How about you
They did one local show, and now they want to be better than Ronnie Coleman.
Right, exactly. Yeah. How about you do a small-time non-national qualifier down, in Columbus or something, and then we'll go from there, excited britches. So
yeah, and even as far as, like the show we talked about the other week, performance-enhancing drugs, with somebody like that, they go from local show to and no gas to I want to beat Ronnie Coleman, all the gas.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is what he takes, I better take that. Holy crap. What about step 1?
Right. Yeah. What about the dabbling phase, right? Something like that.
You don't go from a 405 squat to 905. But that's what people start thinking. I hit 405. I think I can do it, and they just grind themselves. And, they're getting these ugly squats with 600, and now my knee and my hip shot,
Yeah.
Also, the locus of control, right, in terms of how much you can control on yourself, you can't control what externally happens either.
No.
Right.
And there's something to be said about playing the long game and, like, let's add a little bit and not get hurt. And then next meet, we'll add a little bit more and not get hurt. And if you add 20 of those up, all of a sudden you're really good.
Mm-hmm. You know what, you guys, just for fun, while we wind this down, I want to ask Bryan, can you give some examples? I just think this will be fun because you're naturally gifted. What's too heavy for you? Like when you say most people train too heavy, what are you trying to avoid by not going too heavy? You yourself.
On the main lifts or accessories?
Whatever comes to mind.
Probably just when the form breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a couple months out from a competition, I don't really want to be pushing in the 800-pound squats or even the 800-pound deadlifts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or, if I'm doing barbell rows or, any move I could do at the YMCA doing all my bodybuilding stuff. I like to, too heavy would be something where probably you fail before you start to feel your muscles getting pumped.
Oh.
If let's say I'm doing pull downs and I want to do a set of 20 and I get 10 reps in and then my biceps start to take over. Well, then that's too heavy. But,
no, I think it's good. That's a good rule of thumb.
Or, I mean, like he said, he alluded to it. He didn't exactly say it, but in a main lift, if you can't do it right, like perfectly right, it's too heavy for training. Mm-hmm. Training's about doing it right. You don't see golfers going out there and hitting shitty balls to train. Their goal is to hit it perfect. So
right, and including, I think, Bryan's approach of, which prime movers, which major muscles should be taking the load, for your shape and size and all that sort of thing.
Oh, just what primary muscles are involved on everybody's lifts.
Yeah.
Because I squat narrow foot, and my squats are a little more quad dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Where somebody that squats wide is going to have a little more glute and hamstring.
Yeah, but you have the quads to take that.
Yeah, that's why I do it.
Yeah.
But the awareness, too, that kind of bodybuilder-esque awareness of, I know how to feel my quads versus, I don't know, my adductors or something.
While we're still there, though, talking about not training too heavy, been getting a lot of messages on Instagram. Everybody's like, hey, can you help me? This is what I do every day. One guy is saying he works up to a max 5, as many reps as possible squat every time he squats.
Oh.
Wow.
And that he said it was at a 90%.
Yeah.
But then after he does that, he'll take a little, 20-minute break and then do some 5x5s on his squats. And then after that, and I was like, dude, that's your problem.
After that.
he says he says he's lucky if he can even carry himself out of the gym at the end.
And that's an issue. Yeah.
That's just too much. You don't even want to do as many reps as you can.
No.
Especially not at 90%. I think it'd be fun. It'd be a challenge at 50 or 60.
Yeah.
But, as many reps as you can at 50 or 60 is going to have a way different load on your body than as many reps as you can at 90 or 95.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm a big fan of keeping a rep or two in the hole. And sure, there's times to strike when the iron's hot. Like 2 weeks out from the meet, my plan was to take 705 for 1. So I took it, and it was way stupid easy. So I yelled at my training partners, I got 2, and so I took 2, and it was easy. But I stopped there. So there's times to deviate and go crazy, but you should still be crushing it. I mean, who was it that took 1,000 for a double? Frickin' Kowalski.
Oh, yeah.
And then he stood there. He's like, I just want to hold it. But then what did he do in the meet? He didn't hit it.
Yeah.
So when does it count the most? Sure, he was lucky someone was there with the camera, but still on the platform it didn't happen. So was that detrimental? Potentially.
Yeah.
Probably was.
Yep.
So. But
I get a lot of messages from guys too asking, telling me what they're doing, and talking about gym maxes, and it's like, if you're even doing gym maxes, you're doing the whole powerlifting thing wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't know. I always say you shouldn't even know what your max is until at the competition.
Yeah. You can have an idea. I want this, but like for me, that's the only time I max. The only time I max is on the platform. Now, some of my lifters that don't compete, of course, we have to test things at times.
Yeah.
To see where they're at, but a lot of times that's like the whole wrestling team just got done maxing, and I do have them go to triples. So it's like, we don't need to do a max single. They're not a freaking lifter. They're a wrestler.
Right.
So as long as their triples going up, and usually a triple's a lot safer than a single, because if rep 1 starts looking bad, we can call it.
Right.
Before something does go bad. But
previous strength assessments on most clients I have who are not competitive lifters, it's like, okay, just do your best you can on a 3 to 5 rep max.
Yeah.
If you thought it was going to be a 3 and you end up getting 5 pretty easily, cool. Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
You don't have to exactly even hit 3 or 4. It's just, it gives them a range of something that's not a max all-out single. So
yes,
they went too heavy, they only got 2. All right, cool. You only got 2. That's fine. You're not going to wreck yourself to try to get 1.
I don't think people appreciate how taxing a true single is.
Oh,
It's bad. There's a reason we all feel like crap the week after a meet. You're just tapped.
Yeah, just done. Yeah.
So
you find it's just exponential too. Like you could hit 95% and have it be hard, and you're a little bit tired, but to hit a true 100%, like it's way different. Just that last few percentage is like another world.
Well, especially as a seasoned lifter that's into it, because you'll see, like generally somebody new, they'll push a little bit and they're like, oh, I don't have it.
Yeah.
A seasoned lifter will go and push and push and push and push. So you're grinding something crazy. And, you got somebody grinding with 800 plus. Oh man, they're just fried. So, and then they try to 500 after it and it won't move.
Yeah.
Because they've just tapped everything. Everything's done.
Yeah.
So, but hi guys, I think it's been a good time.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Brian. We really appreciate you sharing everything.
Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Yeah, it was fun. So we'll pass this around and get it out there. So, everybody have a good weekend.
Later.
Cool. See you guys.
Hey listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store. One for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowry, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the stores. We try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.